have no other way of describing it, basically. This may well be the very best season I've ever had on any Building a Nation save ever. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to slap this right up front so you don't have to dig through to find it. Over on stream right now, there is a final going on or about to start. I won't say anything more than that, of course, but I didn't want you guys to get too far into the video and realize you'd missed some stuff if you're watching it when it first came out. So you're going to want to join us over there when you've caught up over here, and my god, is there a lot of stuff to catch you up on. VODs on the second channel, obviously. So we came in to season 22 of Building a Nation with Sirens of Malta off the back of the best season that we'd had at any stage in the save, and feeling pretty good about it. The player values were somewhat returning to a more healthy level, still under where perhaps they should be, but we weren't quite so worried financially. We also had presumably the best lineup of teams we'd ever had in Europe in terms of pure quality, exactly where we needed them to be. But before we got into that, there was the little matter of Malta qualifying for the Euros and us managing them there. So we're going to start off with that before we get into anything else. So we were actually able to take over as Janosch to manage Malta at the European Championship. This is just a friendly we played against Poland to get things started off. You can see it was a 4-1 defeat. Team took a little while to get used to our tactics. Try to find the guy that was born in Malta in our lineup. It's Matthew Side, of course, who got the assist, and I think actually was our man of the match, if you like. I mean, does it really matter at that point? It wasn't the best start, but we only had 2 warm-up games before we got straight into our European Championship group. The second of which actually went an awful lot better. A 1-1 draw against Hungary, away from home. Not bad, albeit we only scored a penalty in this game, but we did actually create chances outside of that, and Hungary are not a bad side at all. They'd also be at the Euro, so we felt, you know what, maybe there's actually something here for us. The downside was that while we were busy focusing on this, I accidentally let the game auto-continue past the loan extension date of June 2nd, meaning that we got stuck on June 3rd doing loan extensions, and more importantly, it meant that I could only do 1-year loan extensions, so that's going to make this summer coming up very fun. Oh shit, hang on, no! I've gone past the loan extension date. Next year's going to be fun. That is superb. But all in all, we were going to that first game against Belgium at the Euros with a decent amount of hope, but also not a lot of expectations. And oh Christ, what could have been? Malta 1, Belgium 2. They took the lead through Herman early on, you'd expect that, but we equalised with Norberto Ray off the bench, 81st minute, scoring at the Euros for Malta, getting us what we felt at the time was genuinely a deserved equaliser. We'd come into the game later on, got the chances, and then 83rd minute goal from who? Oh look, it's Gert Gillet. Edge of the box, deflected effort past our goalkeeper, and it sucks that we lose, particularly as it was a very even game and we actually deserved. We were doing well, but then to concede a goal to a player that we literally managed with a deflection like that was gut-wrenching, because we thought, hey, what a chance that was. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was yet to come, as we lost 2-0 to France in the next match. Now, you look at those stats and be like, well, of course you lost 2-0 to France. How could you not lose by more? And you'd be absolutely right. But it's the fact that we were holding them to basically no real big quality chances through the first 40 minutes of this game, and then this happened. Costa around the side. Great from Nieto again. Really good at breaking the... I'm thinking I might just quit this game forever. I'm on the fence, I'll admit. In fact, at the moment I'm on the chair. I think it's about to be. I knew what was coming, and yet it's still delightful. The meme that just keeps on giving. The meme format, basically, it's an advert that I did for the FIFA esports football manager thing. Absolute gut wrencher. We deserved to lose, but like to concede that goal, man. And that, of course, meant that going into the final match day against Bosnia, we actually knew that a win against Bosnia would genuinely qualify us due to the poor performances of other third-place teams if we could just get that win against Bosnia, which we then proceeded to not do. Arguably our worst performance of the entire tournament. Zlatko Djukic got the goal for Bosnia with 30 minutes to go. They were the better side on the night. We just couldn't muster anything. The problem is, I think, with international management and FM as well, is that because the matches are so close together, it obviously still uses the same stuff that you get in clubs, but it means that you're sort of forced to rotate your team so much more than you would do if you were at an actual international tournament, and it does kind of punish you a lot for it, and we just didn't have the depth to be able to do that, so we were best basically either playing worse players or really tired players, and it kind of caught up with us in the latter stages of this game, and we did go out losing all 3 games. It's a shame, but we had that minute of hope, that moment against Belgium where we equalised, and we all thought it could be okay, and then obviously it went horribly wrong from there. But it did at least move us up to 113th in the world at one point, I believe. We're not going to talk about Malta later in the video this time around because there's not really much to add yet. They're just about to start World Cup qualifying. God help them there, I suppose. But hey, they reached a European Championship, which has never happened in any of these saves for me. Not that we're normally managing small enough nations for that to be the case, but either way, brilliant. So now moving back to Sirens, and with the player values genuinely coming up a little bit, instead of having our players' base values at the very top end being like 3 to 5 million, we were sort of into the 20 to 25 million pound range, which is still nowhere near what our top players should be worth, but it's better, and it gave us something to work with. So let's talk about some of the outs first, because we had to get rid of some dead wood. So our first out was Juan Carlos Perez for £9.5 million, and you might say, how on earth could you sell a player for that price? Trust me, we needed him gone. It's actually incredible the amount that this man with these attributes has managed to underperform for us over the last few seasons. It's so much so that it became an absolute meme on the streams, and we finally managed to get someone to buy him. The worst thing is, he actually turned down a £17 million move to Juve 2 days prior to this, just making sure that he cost us a few extra million quid on the way out. But eventually he ended up going to Benfica in January, because it actually went past the deadline day as well. He just dragged his heels that much. But we did manage to get rid of him in the end for £9.5 million. Not a lot, but hey, we'd have got like 800k last season, so the values are at least better. But there are actually two very, very big outs to talk about this summer that has earned us a lot of money and has made us feel a lot more financially stable. First of those is Daniel Gutierrez, and you might think, what on earth were you doing selling this goalkeeper? So basically, we talked about this before. I believe that big matches attribute that he had, despite how good he was costing us so badly in the latter stages of the Champions League. Even if it may not have looked like it, he would just put in these randomly really bad games, even if it didn't seem like he was doing that poorly. And I think it was costing us. We had a new guy that was nearly there on his attributes, but had that big matches thing, and we felt that would maybe make the difference. But of course, having this guy as your backup goalkeeper seemed a bit wasteful. And when Chelsea said, hey, we'll give you £50 million for him, we thought, yeah, that'll do just nicely, especially the fact that they've got him on a £60 million release clause. But that isn't the one that sort of saddened me the most. That was Ilan Jozanovic. This was just a bit of a shame. Basically, he's at times been a bit of a wally, shall we say, with regards to constantly pushing for move to other clubs. This time, basically, he hit us with the FRT. I'm going to leave on a free transfer unless you do something. So we had no choice. We were going to sell Kadri this summer. We knew a centre-back was going to go, but in the end, it ended up being Jozanovic. I would have preferred not to, because he's such a great option as a defensive midfielder as well. In the end, we felt the best course of action. We actually had a £61 million bid from Liverpool, but we thought that sending him to Saudi, where he wasn't going to compete against us in the Champions League, felt like the right move, and it only cost us £2 million. So £59 million for Jozanovic as well. For a guy that we spent like £4 million on a few years ago, I think that's a pretty good deal. I still would have much rather kept him, because he's only 30. He still has at least a few more years at being a complete elite level, but at least he won't be playing against us with that elite level, and he's earning £700,000 a week. So we had a bit more money to work with this year, of course, but that came over the course of the year. It's still been quite a fallow year as far as us signing players, as we wanted to build up a bit of a fund before we could do so. But we have still made some slightly more high-profile signings, and sometimes get a little bit carried away. Oh, hang on. Oh no, what am I doing? When you want a Netflix and chill, but she hits you with the offer for mail #1. Yes or no, chat? First of those players brought in was, his name's not actually Hans Zimmer, but when you see a guy like that, you've got no choice. His name is Lucas Zimmer from 1860 for £2.6 million. He's out on loan at Nashar this year. Hasn't played as much as I would have liked, but I feel like he'll probably be able to stay. We'll have to see. There's a lot of loans up for extension this summer, so we'll have to see on that one. I think I may have showed you him in the last video, not entirely sure, but he has joined us. I really do like this guy, though. We then dropped £3.5 million on Andreas Axon from Malta. I think there's a potential worldy goalkeeper in here into the future. Obviously, he didn't start for us at all or anything like that, and it took us until January to actually find him a loan to Hamron, and he hasn't really played that much there either, so that's a little bit concerning, particularly as at the time they didn't have a goalkeeper, so they must have signed someone else in the meantime there. But so we'll have to keep an eye on that one. But I do really like this guy, and he's got decent potential. I think he's one of the hot prospects for the future. And speaking of that, later in the video, I'm going to introduce a new segment before we do the loan farm stuff, where I just run you through some of the hot prospects at the club that may have joined us a few years ago, but are really starting to look like the guys that could be part of our first team in the future, whether they're here or whether they are out on loan. So try that out later, see what you think. We then dropped £5.7 million on Slobodan Alexic. Now, we always knew that we were going to be taking a risk with bringing in a player who is a mercenary and then not being able to play him week in, week out. But we felt that for £5.75 million, at the very least, there'd be some kind of sell-on value. And I still believe that is the case. He actually has a lot of good pros. The only problem is that he's a mercenary, which means he's absolutely impossible to deal with. So worst case scenario, I think we could still probably get 10 million for him were we to manage to get a bidding war going. But I would like to keep him around a little bit longer, or at least trying to find him a loan or something, because he has been behind Pereira and also Pineda in the pecking order. We also brought in this chap here, Delphi Punsi, which is just a brilliantly fun name. He was released by SP Espanyol, we always have a little look around to see if we can find any guys that are released on freeze to do the flips now that we can actually, in theory, do that again. But we need a little bit of backup for Gert this year, with Jezanovic, of course, exiting the club. So he felt like the perfect solution. 29 years old, bring him in on a free transfer. He can cover that role if we need him to, and he has played 21 times, albeit mostly off the bench. But he's a reasonable player, and frankly, if we find a better option this summer, we can just flip Punzi for £10 million over the course of this year, and it makes everything lovely. Next, one of the biggest outlays, and you look at that going, what on earth are you doing? So you're seeing the 20 million. I promise you, we're not actually paying 20 million. That just takes into account all of the add-ons that we've got in here. We're actually paying 7.5 million up front, which is still too much, I grant you, for American international Anthony Swan, or Swanthony, as we've been calling him. Basically, he had 5-star potential, or we thought that he did anyway, and from the attributes that we could see, because we could see them all obviously, he looked sensational, and just thought there's no way that we can't risk losing this guy. So he's gone on loan to Zabar. So we'll see what happens there, and maybe he does have better PA, and it will just take a little while to adjust like the way that it does, depending on who's looking at him. But all in all, I still think he's an actually good player. I just worry that maybe he's not got much more room to improve, and that could be costly for us potentially. But such is life, right? You've got to spend a bit of money. We hadn't had money for a while that we could actually spend, and I think it just went to our heads a little bit. One bargain, however, is Jonathan Uhaya, brought in from Millonarios on a free transfer. Just a nice little sort of 18, 19-year-old Colombian. Good attributes. Not the fastest, I must admit, for a winger, and you do need that. But he's gone on loan to Melita for the second half of the season. And these are the kind of guys that we have to try and balance it out with, I suppose. He's got some value to him, even if he doesn't have the highest ceiling. There was another guy we tried to get on a free as well, but unfortunately he signed a contract. And there is one more big signing that's worth showing, because again, like I said, we were winding up to be starting to be, there'll be a lot more transfers, I suspect, in the next season, because we've got so much more money to spend. But it is this guy, Fulvio, a player I'd had my eye on for a little while. Brazilian international right-sided player, but actually, my theory with him was to play him behind the striker as the number 10, or offset, in the sort of Padilla role to give us a bit more depth there, because we weren't really finding a guy that was like a true backup to Padilla, without the exceptions of people like Holub, and we felt that Fulvio could potentially be that. Now, we've paid £25 million for him, which is a lot of money, I grant you, and I do wonder if we might regret that potentially, but we just wanted to spend a little bit of cash to get in some of these players, and it's really tough when you're Sirens to find first team quality players, because all the ones that are truly good are already at massive size. So this is where we kind of have to shop a little bit to try to bring these guys in, and it never normally works out that well for us, but we just keep on doing it, and it's fine. We'll just offset it with some ridiculous sales in the summer, no doubt. I'm sure that we'll be able to get 50 million for some random player that you've only just heard of. And that genuinely concludes the in. So you'll notice that our starting 11, especially when it comes to the matches, is almost identical to that which it was last year, with the exceptions of Jezanovic and Gutierrez, I guess. And as for tactics, we moved over to the more dominant approach with the playing out from the back and the working the ball into the box at the end of last season, and that's just persisted into this year, and we haven't touched it at all because we've been pretty happy with it. Which brings us to the league, and well, 16 points we won the league by, which is actually quite a lot for how it's been in recent years. But you'll note, plus 72 goal difference, not too bad. This year, though, much less goals. We only scored 79 goals this season in the league, which is a massive step down. And part of that, I think, has come from the slight change of tactic. We're much more conservative in the play. It means that we're very strong defensively, but we don't get quite as much joy going forward against teams that are kind of set up. And actually, it feels like the other tactic was better against worse sides, even though I thought it wouldn't be. But we did only concede 7 times this season, which is a new record for us. Only one team, I believe, actually scored more than 1 goal against us over the course of this year, and it was Nashar in a 2-2 draw. So that should tell you something. And more importantly, we got exactly who we would really want in Europe, at least for the big 5, with Hamren actually coming second for once. They awoke from their slumber and finally came second. Good in there too. Sweetie, Birkikara, and Balzan Youth get the brand new 6th Champions League. Imagine, 6th European place. So obviously, as a result of us getting up into, I think it was 6th last season, we get that extra place in Europe, and of course that went to Balsan Youth this year because it's delayed by a year. How they're going to do in Europe, I don't really know. I don't know. They have been in Europe once or twice in this save, but it was like, you know, early rounds of the Conference League and then get tipped out easily. Marsa and Melita go straight. I don't know if it's straight back down. I think it might be straight back down. Or was it Slima that came up? Either way, Melita finished bottom, despite Tabakaru, our fantastic loanee, actually getting double digits for them in a dreadful team. So he will probably not want to stay there given their relegation, and because it's not a 2-year loan, we've got no choice. The best case scenario for him, though, would be he comes back and either goes into the rotation for us. I'll actually show you him again later, even though I did last video. Or we could maybe get him on loan to Balsan Youth, and that would be the ultimate scenario, I think, because he could really start to smash it there, and we could start building them up and start cooking them the same way Birkikara did. As for the second tier, Valletta, back up, Mosta, back up. But look at the goal scorers here. Pereira got 35 for Valletta in the league, which I think is actually a record for, or is it? I think that's one actually got 37 one season. It makes me think that if we could somehow somehow keep Tabakaru at Melita, I reckon he could score like 45 goals in this division next year, genuinely. And a shout out to Marcio Beda, again being up here now with 34 goals. But the thing about that is, his team only scored 65 goals. He's responsible for over half of the goals that they scored. But all in all, the league is looking good, which brings us on to the meat and the gravy, and why we're all really here, and that is Europe. And obviously, we're going to start with us. Because last season, despite us literally reaching a Champions League semi-final, I still came away from it feeling like we'd not been cheated, but we just played poorly in that one game and had cheated ourselves out of a chance of a Champions League final. And we had to do better this year because it felt like our time was running out a little bit, and I didn't want this save to end without us winning a Champions League. That would be catastrophic in many ways. And we started off in the best way possible with a 4-1 hammering at home to Nice. Reynoso with a brace, Krastev getting himself a goal as well, Pereira doing the business, and it's just exactly what you want to see. Now, again, we conceded a goal out of very little, but it is what it is, right? You're not always going to be able to keep them out, and it was in the 84th minute, and I had made a lot of changes, because then we pulled this one out. Sirens 1, Barcelona 0. We'd earmarked this one as one of the very tough games that we had to try and get through, and our record against Barcelona lately has been stellar. We basically just don't concede shots to Barcelona in games. It just doesn't really happen. Padilla in the 79th minute banged an absolute walloper of a free kick to give us a deserved, but just about deserved win. Like, Barca offered nothing and definitely didn't deserve to score a goal in this game, but we only just barely did, I would say. But it's a tight-fought game, and you need these tight wins. We then took things a step further with our third win out of 3 away to PSV Eindhoven. Made it hard work for ourselves a little bit, with Padilla scoring the goal, them getting an equaliser, but Reynoso in the 69th minute, nice, bailing us out. Although, good result, underperformed a little bit, but that was the most important thing. Getting 3 wins out of 3 off the bat is extremely good and exactly what we needed. Annoyingly, this time I made the save file for the caching too early, so you can see from the side panel here that we did in fact win 4-1 over Partizan to make it 4 wins out of 4 with Lahovi, Padilla, Gillet, and of course Reynoso bagging yet another one. Yeah, I can never win when I make those save points. Point being though, 4 wins out of 4, 12 points on the board. What more do you want? I guess what you wouldn't want is this. 2-1 defeat at Arsenal. And the annoying thing about this one is it's a harsh one. We were probably the better side in this game, and that's what's so irksome. Chris Lamb scored Arsenal's first 2 chances of the game, and we just had chances after that, but couldn't manage to bury them. Padilla did get us one back in the 67th minute. He's had a much, much better year in Europe. Before Pebbles did this. He's put onto the pitch. The game starts there. He's on the pitch less than 10 seconds. He's on the Yeah, I think we calculated it. He was on the pitch 6 seconds. He was substituted on. The throw-in was taken, and he immediately just fouls an Arsenal player and is red carded. Sensational scenes, but also, what are you doing? We then followed that up with a 0-0 away at Atletico Madrid, and it's like, it's a fair result. Both teams definitely created stuff in this game. Incredible goalkeeping from both ends, really, to actually keep the other team at bay. But it was annoying to see us drop some points there, but we were still looking at it like we played well against Barca, got the win, played reasonably away against Atletico, got a draw, and I always like those away draws in Europe, particularly when it comes to the knockouts. Played well at Arsenal and got a bit unlucky, but we were still doing well in the league phase, which is the most important thing going into our 2 games after Christmas, which should have been more winnable. And it very much turned out that way. 3-1 victory over Real Betis, a team who had actually done very, very well and was sat in, I believe, 6th in the group stage at this point, in a rare foray into the Champions League. 2 more goals for Reynoso, obviously. Pebbles had redeemed himself a little bit and was allowed back into the team at this point to grab ourselves another goal to give us a very comfortable victory in the end. Annoying to concede out of very little, but it happens. We did have to play a backup goalkeeper for this one because Sultan had got the flu. And then things got even better on the final match day. A 3-0 victory, 2 more goals for Reynoso. Valmir finally did something as we absolutely walloped RB Leipzig and probably should have scored a hell of a lot more. Palacio actually operated on the right wing for this one in place of Krastev, who'd had a slight injury in the last one. You'll also know up front for them, Henry Watara. He signed for them and then immediately was in the team against us, and that was just like great fun. He had a dreadful time of it though. You'll also note in there as well, Moltwang, who also played for us one time about 10 years ago. But all in all, a very successful group stage phase for us, getting 19 points and looking very good. But before I show you the league phase, there's something else I need to quickly talk to you about, and that is Goodyear United, who of course were in the Champions League qualifiers themselves. Except they stayed in them. They beat Rangers and then they absolutely obliterated Stade Rennais in the playoff round to join us in the Champions League phase. Now, this has happened one time before with Hamren around about 5 years ago, but I just felt Goodyear were a much better side this season than Hamren were back then. And as you can see, 2nd place for us, our highest ever finish in the Champions League group. And I think possibly we deserved to be even higher if it wasn't for that Arsenal result, honestly. We should be on 22 points, but it is what it is, right? We were looking very good going forward, really good at the back. But that's not the story. The story is 23rd place Goodyear United, who achieved 10 points on their Champions League debut and qualified for the knockouts. Things you'll love to see. Just to show you their fixtures, they had, by the way, the easiest Champions League draw I've ever seen, and I would give my left leg to genuinely have this draw myself, but it is what it is. They got wins against Antwerp and PSV Eindhoven. They got draws against Dortmund, Ajax, Eintracht Frankfurt and Nice. This sounds like a Europa League draw, right? Finally, their defeats were against Chelsea and Galatasaray. So Chelsea, of course, in there. Notably, Chelsea, who actually came 25th and didn't even manage to finish above Goodyear, despite beating them on the final match day. And again, a shout out to Galatasaray. That's their second consecutive season of finishing top 8 in the Champions League, and they actually look like a potential force in Europe, and it's just kind of cool to see a different team up there. But unfortunately, all that success for Goodyear saw them draw Paris Saint-Germain in the first of the knockout games. Unfortunately, they went down 1-0 at home, but still kept things tight before in the second leg actually getting an incredibly impressive 0-0 draw in the Parc des Princes and only losing 1-0 on aggregate to Paris Saint-Germain. So I think there's definitely something there for Goodyear, and it gives me hope that actually these teams could potentially compete in the Champions League in future years, and they will hopefully get better as the money comes in. It's just exciting to see it happen for once. And it was good coefficient points because they got there, they got through, and they get the bonus points for getting through. But of course, what happened for us? As we obviously got to skip around ourselves, which means we were going straight into the round of 16, as it were, and would you believe it, we got to play against the team we'd literally just beaten in RB Leipzig. We're going to play 3 games in a row in the Champions League against them. First up, we played brilliantly away in Germany and got a 1-1 draw. Because it's just how it is. Reynoso scored another goal for us this season, and then unfortunately Sharkovic gets one back for Leipzig. We were massively the better team, but you can't win them all, basically. It's a real shame, though, because we absolutely should have obliterated them here and just couldn't do it. Luckily, at home, it didn't really have the same effect. A 4-0 hammering, Reynoso getting 2 more, Pereira and Pebbles, of course, filling in for the injured Padilla. Now, this is a bad time. Padilla picked up a very serious injury in, the Christmas period and hasn't played for the entire rest of the season. It was an Achilles problem, or damaged Achilles, and I think it was 5 to 6 months out. So it was basically a case of the only way he's coming back for you this year is if you make the final, pretty much. Which meant we had a lot of fill-in players, especially the likes of Pebbles and, of course, Fulvio, who joined us in January. But it did allow us to push through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League and feeling good about ourselves. And then we drew Manchester United, because of course we did. But then this happened. This right here is what champions are made of, especially when you look at what happened with the injuries. So within 10 minutes at the start of this game, both Pebbles and Krustev were forced off with injuries, and that of course used 2 of our substitution slots as well, and leaving us in all kinds of problems. Both of them would miss the second leg and potentially the semi-final were we to actually make it to that as well, so putting us in deep trouble. Not that it mattered, apparently, because Fulvio came on, scored a goal, got an assist, and Reynoso banged a hat-trick against Manchester United to take his goal tally in the Champions League, I think, to like 12 at this point. He was absolutely flying, and surely we couldn't bugger it up from here, getting flashbacks to us winning 3-0 against Manchester City, then losing 5-0 at the Etihad. Yeah, we don't do that sort of stuff here. Man United 1, Sirens 3, 7-1 on aggregate. We are back, baby. Back in pog form. Reynoso bangs back-to-back hat-tricks against Manchester United. He scored 6 of our 7 goals, and it's this kind of performance and behaviour from him that is carrying us through. He was just scoring left, right and centre. And what a dominant performance against easily one of the 2 to 3 best teams in Europe this was. Didn't deserve to win this game by 3-1 by any means, but we got the results when we needed it there. And of course, we had a much weakened side here without the likes of Krustev, without the likes of Pebbles and Padilla. There was a lot of injuries here, so to see us get through, I was very, very pleased indeed. And this is where things get absolutely wild, because you're thinking Champions League semi. Last year you played Milan. There's a lot of tough sides still in Europe. So who did we play in the Champions League semi-finals? That's right, Galatasaray. Galatasaray mentioned Ra, I can hear it now. And in the home leg, we did the business over them. But they'd knocked out Bayern Munich, who'd knocked out Arsenal to reach this stage. So Galatasaray, absolutely no mugs. They had Stefanos Kokas, a player that I think I actually showed you a couple of years ago, that had signed for us on a free transfer that we had to get rid of because of squad limitations. He was very, very good. But nevertheless, 2-0 victory in the home game, 2 goals for Gonzalo Reynoso yet again. He was denied a hat-trick in this game. He probably should have had a hat-trick as well. He missed a golden chance towards the end, but it is what it is. 2-0 up, going to Turkey, and then we did it again. A 2-0 victory in Turkey, 2 goals off the bench for Luis Pineda, giving us a 4-0 hammering, well, not even hammering, a 4-0 comfortable performance to push ourselves through to our second Champions League final of the save. We've done it. We've been sort of knocking on the door for the last couple of years, but this year all the stars aligned. Reynoso's been on insane form, and everybody around him has just been fantastic. The defense has still been absolutely golden. I think we still only conceded 2 goals in the Champions League knockouts in our entire run to the final here, so that is massive. And in that final, we will play Atletico Madrid, who somehow managed to get their way all the way to the final, beat Juve in the semis. Now, we drew with them in the league. I feel like we're a better side than them, and I feel like this is the best chance we've had in the entire save to go and win a bloody Champions League. So we will be doing that over on stream right now. I've even promised chat that if we somehow manage to win it, I'll do an hour of Balatro. Weird times. So with us reaching the Champions League final, Goodyear actually reaching the knockouts of the Champions League, the other Maltese sides had a lot to live up to, frankly. We pretty much had the perfect lineup as well, with every team that I would have wanted in Europe in exactly the competitions I would have wanted them in. And of course, Hamren doing their usual thing, going straight into the group stages of the Europa League anyway. Sweetie are up next in the Europa League qualifiers, and they've proven really time and time again that they're pretty much too good for those qualifiers now. 5-1 on aggregate over Elfspor before putting 10 goals past Serbian Cup winners IMT to easily slide into the big group. And last up, of course, in the Conference League were Birkirkara, who made relatively light work of it as well, with a 5-2 victory over Scoopy on aggregate before beating Celia, a team who've done okay in the Conference League 4-1 to also reach the big group. I think in future I might just tell you guys they made the group, because it's kind of a foregone conclusion at this stage. The best thing about those qualifiers, though, if you count all of the qualifying matches, there was 12 qualifying matches played, 11 wins and 1 draws for the Maltese side. So we were already getting some points laid out before we even got into the groups. So let's start with the Europa League. For the second season in a row, a Maltese side won the Europa League group. Hamron win it. 18 points, 6 wins, 2 draws. Banging. Just incredible scenes. Beat Shamrock Rovers 5-0, and it was that 5-0 win on the final day that gave them the goal difference they needed to overtake Newcastle to get the result. Brilliant scenes from them. So yeah, those were the results that they got, of course. Olympiacos, Dinamo Kiev. Notice how they didn't concede a single goal in any of their wins as well. Incredible scenes. And then they lost to Newcastle and Red Bull Salzburg. So Newcastle, obviously one of the favourites here. The Salzburg one, they were both at home as well, which was a little surprising, but they still got the results. Sweetie, 6th place. Didn't lose a single game either, which is very impressive, but did drop some points against teams you'd have hoped that they wouldn't do. Draws against Anderlecht, like Athens, Wolfsburg, but they got a draw with Villa, which was very impressive. And then the wins against Bayer Leverkusen, Tromsø, of course, Slavia, and of course, Hammarby. But the point is, both of them go through in the top 8. Lots of more points for Malta. But in that next round, which was, of course, the round of 16, Hamron would face off against Sevilla. Always a tough task, whereas Sweetie would get the pleasure of playing against Legia Warszawa, literally the worst team left in the tournament. So then naturally, Sweetie made things very hard for themselves, losing the first leg 1-0, while Hamron got a brilliant 1-1 draw away at Sevilla in a game that they possibly could have won. In the second leg, however, they left nothing up to chance. With a 3-0 victory over Sevilla to push their way through to the quarterfinals, Sweetie would join them after extra time. I guess Hamron are the stronger of the two sides, as is shown by their performances in the group, but still, I'd have thought Sweetie would have done better than that. Unfortunately, though, in that quarterfinal, they would draw each other, which is good on one hand because it means it guarantees us a Maltese side in the semi-finals of the Europa League, but it also denies us the possibility of having 2 teams in the semi-final of the Europa League. But in that first leg, Hamron got the 3-2 victory over Sweetie United. A very tight game, to be fair, so they are very evenly matched teams, but in that second leg, Sweetie were able to blow through Hamron and actually get a 3-1 victory and a 5-4 on aggregate to put themselves through with a goal from Koren. So I would say the weaker of the two sides is actually probably into the semi-finals at this stage. Worth noting as well, you won't have seen any goals from Roy Fleming there, or not for a while, because Sweetie sold him to Inter for, what was it, £17.5 million. So that's the highest sale of any other Maltese side by a massive margin. So Roy has gone to Inter, and the first thing Inter did was not register him for the Champions League. Oh, Roy! Still not Maltese, by the way. Although on the plus side, his awaiting paperwork thing has actually gone away, and we wonder if that's because when we became Malta manager, it cleared something. But either way, he's still not Maltese. But that then set up a semi-final between Sweetie and Wolfsburg, a team they got a draw against in the group stage. And then this happened, that they won 3-0 in Germany, Radincic, Torres, and Michael Byrne getting the goals to surely give them an insurmountable lead and a chance at a final. And that's exactly what they did. They won the home game, Radincic again, who's joining permanently, Tanic with another one to give them the result in the end. They won both legs. They are into the Europa League final. They will play against Newcastle. It's incredibly tough, obviously, but this is the first Maltese side to ever reach a Europa League final, and I'm super happy for them. It's also their second final of the save. Both us and Sweetie have had 2 finals. No one's won anyone yet, but that was a second final for us, and of course that will be coming up before our Champions League final over on stream. It's going to be packed as far as the stream goes, as you can imagine, but we still have the little matter of the Conference League. Though it is worth saying, if Sweetie do win the Europa League, they will become the first Maltese side to ever win a European trophy, because the Europa League is the first final that takes place, so there's nothing we can do about it. Birkirkara kind of let us down a little bit. Actually only managed to achieve 2 wins, 4 draws against RFS of all people, Pushkas, Trenchin, and Lyon. Lyon's a good draw, I must admit. Wins against Torpedo and Crvena Zvezda. So a little bit disappointing. I would have expected to see them towards the top here, especially as when you look at how close it was to actually getting it. 14 points, won you the group. And as it happens, it was their last game of the group, which was against, of course, RFS. And would you believe it, that's who they drew in the first knockout round. And then they did this. An 8-0 battering of the Latvian side. Where was this in the group, by the way? But yeah, 8 goals, pretty much comfortably through. Naturally, they only won the home leg 2-1, but it was 10 goals scored for them there, so I was still pretty pleased for them. It pushed them, of course, through to the round of 16. But their reward was group winners Vitesse. Not that that mattered to them, as they got a 2-0 victory with Kieran Warner and Zbigniew Kmichik, whose name I'm sure I'm still butchering. And then in the away game, Vladimir Steva's goal gave them a 3-1 victory on aggregate and pushed them through to the quarterfinals themselves, and this is where the luck of the draw came in. They got Olimpia Ljubljana, easily the sort of lowest ranked side left in the tournament, and what a chance this was. Though they did make very hard work of it in the home game with a 3-2 victory, and actually it was a very tight game that they potentially even could have lost. Luckily in the away game they were also able to get a result with Palacios and Steva scoring again to push themselves through to the semi-final final of the Conference League. You're now understanding why this season has been so insane, where they would play against Club Brugge for a chance to play in the Conference League final. Unfortunately, home games are super important, and they could only manage a 0-0 draw, and probably were unlucky not to lose. Lucky not to lose this game. But then in the away game, it just wasn't to be. A guy whose literal name is Bourgeois got the 2 goals for Club Brugge in the final minutes of the match. They got a red card in there as well. It just kind of all went to pieces for Birkirkara right at the final seconds. It actually could have been an all-Belgian final between Club Brugge and Genk, but Boa Vista reached the final of the Conference League, and they'll play Club Brugge. Of course, that game is in between our 2 finals. So we were denied a chance at 3 finals in the same stream. That has happened once before with MTK on the last save, but we still get 2 finals, us and Sweetie, but it's the amount of points being gained around it. And this is, hold on to your hats, friends. Seriously, bang. 26.9 points. I'm fairly certain, and this may not be entirely correct, but I'm fairly sure that in any of the Building a Nation saves I've ever done, be it even back in the days with Polonia and whatnot, but across Tromsø and Treaty and MTK, I don't think I've ever had a season that was close to 27 points. I think I may have done 25 or even like a low 26 once. And the thing is, we're not technically even finished yet. There are more points available for us. We are 6.4 points above England on the year, which is wild. We had 18.5 points at the end of the group stage because of the sheer amount of points being gathered by those multi-sides. That combined with the fact that we only had 5 teams, which is the last season of this, I would suspect. But this is where it gets even better, because that pushes us up to 3rd place by a comfortable margin of 4 points on the year, because we've gained, what's that, 12 points on Germany in a single season? But actually, it could get even better. I said that we could maybe get into the top 3 or 4 in like the next 5 years, and yet here we are in 1 season later after the best season I've ever had. But the thing is, we've got us and Sweetie in finals. We will both get 0.2 for representing our countries in those finals. That's guaranteed points. In addition, if we were to beat Atletico in the final, which is of course a Spanish side, we would get another 0.4. Now, they will get some participation points as well, but theirs will be diluted by more because they're obviously 4th in the coefficient charts. If we win the Champions League, I'm fairly certain we would go 2nd on the coefficient charts. Going from 6th to 2nd in a single season is wild, and we could get pretty close to 28 points on the year, which would, I think, be the biggest coefficient haul of any country in this entire save. So I'm over the moon with this season, and I don't think we'll ever be able to top it. Although watch us lose both finals and come crying back. All I know is it's been an incredibly exciting season, and it's not even done yet. There's still 2 finals to go. Imagine if we got 28 points in 1 year. So youth intake. We don't really do youth intakes around here. Moving on, from a stats perspective, it's all about Reynoso. 32 goals this season, 19 of which have been in the Champions League. He is 1 away from 20 goals in the Champions League this season, and it's not like there's qualifying goals padding his stats. That's all been in group stage or higher. Incredible scenes from him. Really, truly the best season of his career for my money, and he's still only 24. That's what's scary. We've also added the transfer values to this screen, so you can get an idea about how the values are at least better than they were, but they are still appalling compared to where you would be for being a striker the level of Reynoso. He's not a £26 million striker, is he? We all know that. Pereira fell off a little bit this year. 15 goals, underperformed his XG. He wasn't able to stat pad as much in the league, which definitely has affected him, but he's still been a really solid player. He's still only 24 as well. There's a really nice young core in this team. Bizarma as a backup, 14 goals. It's about what you'd expect from him. More than happy with that. Pebbles, 12 goals. Really, really good. Both operating slightly deeper and obviously filling in for Padilla after he had his injury. Speaking of Padilla, 12 appearances. He's only started 12 games for us this year. Only 1,000 minutes to his name. Got 10 goals in that period. He, I believe, had 5 goals in the Champions League when he got injured. Last year, he only got 1 in the entire tournament. He was on 1, and there is a chance that he may well be able to play in the final today. We're just not entirely sure. He is back fit, but he's been out for a very long time, so his match sharpness is very, very low. Krastev again, though, 17 assists. Not quite as many as last year, but I think he hasn't played as many minutes too, due to some of those injuries. 2 goals as well, which makes sense that he would get less goals, considering how the tactic is. Lahovi, less assists with 12, but not too bad. 8 goals. Possibly could have even had double digits this season, I feel like, and I think that's all testament to how much it's opened up that side of the pitch for him. So really, really pleasing on that side. Now, we are going to look at some other players in a minute when we get to talking about the loan farm, because there's a few like youth players that I want to sort of highlight for you. In fact, you know what? Screw it. We're going to do it now. We're going to focus on some of the hot prospects that are coming up throughout the club. First of those is forward Babesi. You might look at him and go, he's kind of unimpressive. Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. However, we really like what he's been doing in matches. He gets really good ratings. He's able to generate an enormous amount of assist, or expected assists anyway, and his attributes do look very, very good indeed. He's developing really nicely. He does have a fickle personality, which means I have done the ultimate thing for me, which is I've actually made a mentoring group. Usually they do nothing but give me pain and terrible player traits that I didn't want, but we're going to have to see.
What about mentoring? Well, Anarith,
When a mummy player and a daddy player love each other, and sometimes a third player love each other very much, they have a polyamorous relationship on the training ground, and sometimes a player runs with balls down left. We want to just try and make him less fickle, basically. Try to give him a slightly better personality to see if he does have any PA, whether we can try and get something out of it, because I really do like a lot of things about him, especially the physicals and that crossing ability. So all the rest of the hot prospects are all players that are out on loan, but I wanted to highlight them properly so you could see their attributes, and we can't show you their development because it doesn't let you do that when they're on loan, which is annoying. The first is Cho Sung-won. I think he's in his third season now out on loan at Tarshin Rainbows, but this is a player that I am excited about, like really excited. 4 caps for Korea. He's worth a decent amount of money, as you'd expect. 2.5-star CA, which is really good. 17 tackling, 17 marking, 13 headings. Not amazing, but he's only 20. 17 jumping reach. He's the king of the 17s, and he's fast. 6'2", great in the air, brilliant defensive technical ability. The one thing that might let him down is that aggression and bravery, but either way, I still think there could potentially be a world-class centre-back in here, so we're certainly not lacking for talent coming through. We, of course, also have Sergio Tepakaru, the Romanian monster, with his 10 appearances for Romania, 19 years old, full season at Melita, 12 goals. For an absolutely woeful team in the top flight, that's very impressive numbers. He will almost certainly come back this summer. Either he becomes like a rotation option, maybe even a backup striker, maybe have him instead of Bizarma, start getting him some football, or we find him on loan to someone like Balzan, which would be the dream. Then we have Pedro Figueira. He is probably the shining star of our youth prospects, basically. We signed him last season. He's gone on loan to Goodyear. He's played 37 times for them this season over the course of the year. I think he actually was on loan last year too. Unflappable model citizen wonder kid. He has got 3 Portugal caps at 20 while playing for a Maltese side. That should tell you everything. The development we've seen out of him this year has been astonishingly good. 10 goals and 9 assists off that left-hand side. He is a monster, and I'm very excited to see what can happen if we could keep him at Goodyear for a few more years, get him playing football, 18 agility as well. We know how important agility is in FM25. FM25? FM24. Get ahead of yourself there, Matt. He is one to keep an eye on. And the last one for me is, of course, Vandenhout, our record signing, who's still out on loan at Sweetie United, will, of course, play in the Europa League final for them. He's getting there. Ignoring the red arrows, of course, that's just because a game was just played, but we're still seeing this nice upward trajectory from him. He's got really good defensive technicals, just like So Chun Wong. Physical's not quite as good as him, and again, he does lack a little bit of aggression and bravery, which is really annoying. I've found a few centre-backs like this. He's obviously on huge money here, but I'm more than happy to keep paying that money for him to keep delivering performances for Sweetie United out on loan. So now to the loan farm, which is actually at, well, it's less. It's 261, which is a good 40 down from last year. Main reason for that is we've sold like another 10, 15 guys to their loan clubs, which is brilliant. And in addition, we've been getting rid of some of the sort of deadwood guys that can only really get loans to Dingley Swallows. Those are guys that are not particularly useful for us. But as for the loanies, I was just basically looking down this list. We've also got other guys that I might show you next time around, like Lucas Carlson, Paulo Mateus, Eurico Luis, who's a little bit older than some of the others, but there's a lot of talent here. Best performers out on loan, of course, Pereira with 36 and 32 is absolutely unhinged. Bader with 34. Staver with 21, though, in the top flight is very impressive. Juarez with 20. Amazing scenes. Assist-wise, Kieran Warner. I want to highlight him because he, I would say, is probably the best player we have out on loan that's actually in the loan farm. Manolo's a guy that we're just trying to bump his value up, although 50 appearances. This is Kieran Warner. £1.8 million. He's 3.5 stars, sometimes 4, depending on the right day. He's a very good player. Incredible that he only has 5 Sweden caps. Oh, actually, we do get it. We had a look. Basically, they don't play a system with wingers. What are you doing? Sweden, come on. So, to finances. And this is where things get a little bit more interesting for us in many ways. Because, firstly, we had a takeover. The club was bought. And we were promised all this kind of cool stuff. There was news that, they're going to put them on the stock market, do all this, do that, buy me a new car. Maybe not that bit, I don't know, I made that up. Point being, it took a month to finally go through after being on and off and on and off and on and off, more than like a really toxic couple. Eventually it went through and then nothing happened because they were no plans to do anything useful to the club. We didn't get any requests put through, nothing. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. So a little bit disappointing on that, but the point is we made a profit of 46 million this year, which gives us a lot more money to spend as far as FFP goes. If we can continually make a profit every single year, we know we're never going to have any issues with FFP, and it means we'll actually have some money to spend. Next year I can see us dropping like 50, 60, 70 million, not on one player, of course, but on a raft of players to really start to buy some of those like guys that look like the true wonder kid. The guys that win the next gen list, but they're playing for Juve next gen. Those kind of guys. I really do want to be able to start signing them, and I feel like we're getting close now, especially if we were able to win the Champions League this summer, because that would change our reputation game massively. And so our aim, of course, for season 23 is to absolutely smash it. We will never be able to hit probably a season like this, because next year we're going to have 6 teams in Europe, minimum. In fact, given the fact that we're going to win the coefficient race this year no matter what happens, we're still not sure if that's going to give us an extra spot, because last time it didn't. We believe that it won't, because we don't have enough teams in the Champions League already qualified for it to like trickle down enough. Most likely what it's going to do is put our 3rd Champions League team directly into the group stages. We suspect that's what's likely to happen, and I'm okay with that. A 7th team in Europe this season might be a stretch too far. We know that we're going to have 7 next year. season after, if you like. But still, I want to sort of slowly build up to it because we're never going to be able to hit 27 points again. But it's just nice to have finally done it once. So yeah, join us over on stream. We will be getting straight into first the Sweetie final, of course, then us against Atletico. And should things go to plan, I'll be streaming a different game for the first time ever. Doing a bit of Balatra to sort of cool things down a little bit. Maybe have a gin. But anyway, got a video coming up at the end of the week as well with the Chaotic Champions League thing. Had some issues with it last week, so I had to delay it slightly, but that will be out this Friday no matter what. Patrons, of course, will get that early, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will join you over on stream for Champions League. It better not be as hot as it is right now, or I will be sweating the craziness out of that suit. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.